Hey everybody, Cat King here. Welcome to Mad, Mad, Mad. I should say welcome back because it's been a while since I've had the opportunity to be able to really record long form content. As any of you who are following me probably already know, I have been I quit my job at the Space Needle for good reasons. I didn't get fired or anything. I quit of my own free will. I just was done with the bullshit. And I'll get into that another time. But this podcast is really all about just trying to share with people my creative writing process because I've been a writer my whole life. And even though I have treatment resistant schizophrenia, my life experience as somebody with treatment resistant schizophrenia has informed my writing. And so, being a sci fi fan raised on Star Trek and Asimov, I really love utopian and hopeful science fiction, but my lived experience with schizophrenia has unfortunately sort of dampened that hopefulness by providing me with positive symptoms that are quite disturbing and really difficult to live with. And so I thought it would be helpful to sort of together a podcast, a series of episodes that individually discuss each of my books and even maybe some of my collections of stories, sci-fi and horror stories. I primarily write science fiction and speculative fiction and horror and sci-fi horror, psychological horror, any crossover in between, and I even delve into sci-fi and fantasy. And so today's episode, I mean, welcome aboard. This is my live Mad Mad Mad. You can see. I'll duck down so you can see it. And I don't know if you can uh will be able to hear, but I have a song that's going to be the theme song for this podcast that I've been working on. So I thought I might share it with you briefly. We'll see if it works. I'm going to share my screen and I want to share sound. So let me go ahead and share sound. Let me see if I can find it. Hmm, Let's see if I can find it. It'll be computer audio. Let me see if it allows me to be able to see it. You'll be able to see my screen. Here we go. Share, share, share. Okay, so this is kind of exciting because I am a musician and I actually did manage to make quite a bit of cash off of my music, but that was all during the pandemic. I was laid off of my job and I was having a hard time finding work. And so I started putting out music, and so this song was part of the Dystopian Utopia album, which unfortunately I did pull off. I pulled most of my music off, but my music, my books, stories, even Glass Stars, my sci-fi series, that is my complete trilogy sci-fi book set. That is in development as a sci-fi series, and we have a live show coming up in January. But today's episode is actually going to be about my first full-length novel in the psychological sci-fi body horror genre, which is The Stars Began to Speak. And I guess I'm gonna have to take it off of the, there we go. Boom. So you can see there are three stars. There's a little girl standing there looking up at these stars. One of them is like a copper or like a golden color. And I'm going to actually start by reading you the back cover, but I did want to share the upcoming, like what will be the theme song for this podcast with you because I think you'll like it. So let's make sure that all the sounds are on. Here we go, if it works. Now this is just a kind of a rough cut, so don't judge it too harshly. Let's see. So that's just a taste of it. Now, I this is the was the first cut of it that I ever released, but I'm actually going to pause sharing real quick because I want to show you a different screen. Hang on one second. It's been a while since I've been on Zoom and my working memory, especially with the schizophrenia and ADHD. And that's the thing. So if you don't know me, let me just first of all introduce myself. My name is Kat King, and I am a disabled Army veteran who has been battling treatment-resistant schizophrenia since getting out of the military almost 15 years ago. I was 22 when I was diagnosed, and I have been dealing with it ever since. And I spent a lot of time, a long time in the prodromal stages, which is the stage where you don't really know what's going on, but you are having symptoms and just don't know what's going on. And usually that person doesn't have a diagnosis yet, but is experiencing voices and maybe seeing things or hearing things that other people doesn't hear, and they may not even be sure that those things are even hallucinations because they think they're real. So I started off actually with anxiety when I was a teenager, and then I joined the military at 17, shipped out at 18 after I was 18 for basic training, and then went on to serve in the Army. Um, but my experience with schizophrenia informs and is the bedrock of my fiction work as a writer because I think it's important that there is some understanding that schizophrenic people shouldn't really be the villains of these stories. Schizophrenic people are just as much a victim of the illness as their family members or society is by some of the very few and rare cases where people who are hearing voices do end up hurting other people. And yes, violence is part of my past, unfortunately, but since being able to like step away from all substances, and especially alcohol, though I do smoke weed still, I smoke weed because it helps me to not remember my dreams and I'm able to sleep. And sleep is really the only escape that I have from my treatment-resistant schizophrenia symptoms because I hear countless voices all day long, constantly abusing me, threatening me with death, rape, sexual assault, all kinds of manner of bodily harm and injury to myself, my family, my friends, my loved ones, my partner, my pets, everybody I care about. So I thought, for me, my life is a horror story. It is a waking nightmare, and there is no escape from it. So for me, horror stories should reflect my lived experience, and there aren't any out there that I know of that do that. So I began to publish, and so that's why I decided to write my actual first full-length standalone novel. This is not tied to the Glass Stars universe. This is truly a psychological slash body horror, and it is inspired by real science because it's about the theory of self-replication. And it is going to be one of those stories which kind of it hinges on and it revolves around the concept of generational trauma, but it also features a sister, a protagonist who has schizophrenia, and that person is semi-autobiographically loosely based on me, and the book is dedicated to all of my sisters and our life together, just moving through all of our mental illnesses and physical disabilities, everything that we've been through as a family. I wanted to do something for them, to write something to honor our struggle as sisters and our finding our way back to each other all these years later through all of it. So this story, even though it doesn't have like the most hopeful ending, the truth is because my experience with schizophrenia means that unfortunately I don't have beneficial voices. I don't have guardian angels. I don't have, good voices telling me nice things. My voices are always threatening to hurt me or trying to get me to hurt myself and always abusing me. And they're at different volumes and different distances. And one of the lowest frequencies is a humming sound. And there was a humming sound that just sounded like it was just a low level hum. And it was difficult to place it, difficult to locate it, but it was always present, always there until I started taking ketamine, and the ketamine actually killed the hum. But I still hear the other voices, and now I don't have ketamine because I quit my job. Like I said at the beginning, I quit my job because I wasn't well and it wasn't healthy for me to stay there with the black mold and everything. And I'll get into that on another time. But I needed to quit. I needed to go back to what I know best, which is to work in education, work with kids with special needs. And so I took a job as a paraeducator. And then I kind of got jacked around by the agency that I was working for and ended up without a job and relying on family and mutual aid and food banks. And we've been kind of like trucking along ever since now, but I did land a full-time job. So I am working, but now I'm just now barely tomorrow and the next day getting my first real check to be able to catch up. I'm still behind on rent and still like relying on other people for support right now until like that ship comes in with that first big full check. But even then, it's only 59K a year and I live in Seattle. So getting back to the reason why I'm here is because I wanted to write books and stories about schizophrenic people as the sort of the hero of the story, or at least the protagonist. And so I'm going to start this podcast by reading the back cover of The Stars Began to Speak, which is again my first ever completed novel. Now you have to understand with ADHD my whole life long, I never thought I would ever actually complete a novel. I've been a poet. I have written very short poems, very long poems, unfinished so many books unfinished. And so you have to understand, like from my perspective, why something like ChatGPT is good to get like going and get started. But I don't publish everything that's completely AI generated. I have to go through and edit and I have to change things because it doesn't get it right and it just wants to hyperbolize and but for me, like having all this stimulus all the time, for me, my voices are real people behind me and around me. They're not like in my head. I can tell the difference between my internal monologue, my subvocal speech, and the external sounds that are coming out toward me, around me, from the space around me. And these voices are not the same as my internal monologue or my subvocal speech. They're men's voices. They sometimes don't sound like a man or a woman. They sound like something in between. And so I wanted a protagonist in this story. There had to be. If I was going to publish a full-length novel, it's going to have to be about somebody who has schizophrenia. So one of the sisters, Grace, the middle sister, of course, Lucy, based on my sister and my and me being the middle child of my family, and these estranged sisters who years later have to come back to their hometown when their mom goes missing. It turns out their mom worked in a lab as a she wasn't exactly a researcher, but she handled the materials and things like that. And she got involved in some sort of secret, I don't know, rogue plan to adapt to some sort of virus or whatever. And in the meantime, this kind of hum starts to land across the town, starts to sweep across the town, and more people begin to hear it. And of course, nobody believes the sister has schizophrenia when she tells them about this humming because she has schizophrenia. So why would anybody believe her? Because people with schizophrenia see and hear things that aren't real. So how can their perception of reality be trustworthy or reliable, right? So I'm going to go ahead and read it, but I just had to wet my whistle here. So here we go. Are you ready? This is the dramatic reading of The Stars Began to Speak by Catherine R. King, aka yours truly. When estranged sisters Sylvia, Grace, and Carolyn are forced to reunite following their mother Marion's mysterious disappearance, old wounds resurface and buried secrets claw their way to the surface. What begins as a reluctant family reunion spirals into a nightmarish race for survival when a strange, omnipresent hum sweeps across their small town, triggering catastrophic events that defy explanation. As the sisters unravel their family's troubled past, they uncover a chilling connection between their mother's work as a biologist, their father's history of abuse, and the inexplicable phenomenon threatening humanity's existence. Faced with mounting terror and their own deeply ingrained pain, they must confront not only their shared trauma, shared, not shared, but also a horrifying evolutionary truth that binds them in ways they never imagined. Blending psychological horror, grounded science fiction inspired by real science, and raw family drama. The Stars Began to Speak is a gripping exploration of love, survival, and the ties that break and rebuild us. With every chapter, the line between the past and the future blurs, leaving readers questioning humanity's fate and the true natures of the sisters' bond. The Stars Began to Speak by Catherine R. King. Now on sale on Amazon in paperback, or if you're like me and you no longer wish to continue to serve the ultra wealthy, you can get it in the ebook for way cheaper on Gumroad, and that's at catkinghere.gumroad.com. You can pick it up right now. It's like $5.99. If you're really interested in horror, body horror, speculative fiction, surrealism, with schizophrenic protagonists that are, of course, based and rooted in real, authentic, lived experience with schizophrenia, I would check out the trilogies, not a trilogy set, sorry. It's a bundle that I have on Gumroad. It's an ebook bundle, and it has the Stars Began to Speak. It also has Ripple, which is another sci-fi spec fic surreal. It's more of a surrealist. It's sort of like my Fear and Loathing, location-based body horror novel, and that is I did have a video about that already. It's already up on my channel a while back. It was the first like episode, so check it out. It's called Ripple. But if you want to know about what that was about more in detail and kind of what inspired that story, I would check out that video. I actually will put it in the like the related videos here, or I'll add it to the end of this video, or whatever you do on YouTube to make it visible so you can see it at the end of this video, or sometime where you can click on it and watch that one so you get a sense of what it's about before you go and buy the whole bundle, because you may not want to read all three of them. You may just be like, I'm kind of more interested in this one. But I would say read them all because they're all totally different from each other. They have different plots, premises. All of them are based on real scientific concepts and real warnings about, like for example, the Abyss Gaze is also. I just dropped it in paperback, so once I get a hard copy, I'll do one of these Mad 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 episodes that unpacks the inspiration for the Abyss Gazes also. But for now, if you want to check it out, an ebook, it's there. Again, it's part of that like triple triad bundle that I've got on Gumroad. So the Abyss Gazes also is about the scientific warnings that have come out recently about the study of mirror bacteria or synthetic mirror bacteria. This does sound crazy, and that's the whole idea behind this podcast and behind my channel is to challenge your perception of reality the same way that my illness has forced me to question myself and put me in situations that have, yeah, endangered myself, endangered other people. But there are real threats and there have been real traumas and things like that. And I have been the protagonist in the story of my life with this illness. And so it's only fair to be able to come out and share those stories because it looks like I'm the only one doing it. And so I shouldn't be, but I seem to be. And as long as I am here, I want people to know that like Hollywood's not going to tell you the truth. Hollywood uses schizophrenia as a plot device and exploits it. And even in the indie horror genre in filmmaking, I was recently contacted about making a movie about a woman who hears a voice telling her to kill a pop star and take over their life. And when I reached out to that person actually ended up telling me that they have a family member who was institutionalized and basically died from schizophrenia in a hospital in a psych ward, and that they have another family member or they know somebody in their life who was an attorney for John Nash, who they made A Beautiful Mind about. So when I asked them to like explain what inspired this, they just told me instead of saying, well, I wanted to pay homage or honor the life of my family member or this person I know who had schizophrenia or who worked with John Nash who definitely had schizophrenia. I mean, I was like, cool, that's cool. But then when they were like, well, when I asked them to like, why would you paint that person as a killer? The person was like, well, I just want to make cool art. I was like, well, instead of making just cool art, maybe like you have to understand that cool art has real world consequences for people with schizophrenia because of the media representations of people with schizophrenia as cold-blooded psychopathic killers and murderers, and especially as like serial killers. I mean, this is a trope that everybody knows about, and movies like Split do a real damage to people like me because and people with DID or multiple personalities, dissociative identity disorder, it does real damage and harm to us because there are real people out there who are living their lives and minding their own business and not harming anybody. And then someone comes along after seeing a movie like Split and they decide that they've got to like preemptively strike out and like take out the garbage or the perceived garbage. But you've just made yourself into a murderer. You've just turned yourself into the person you fear most and hate most. And so, what does that say about you as a person who are so quick to want to end a person's life because you perceive them as a threat, even though they actually haven't in real life, in real objective reality, haven't actually done anything to you? Who then is the delusional one? Who then is the most dangerous person in the room at that time? It's actually the neurotypical non-schizophrenic person who poses the threat. And that's not to say, once again, that's not to say that people with schizophrenia don't kill people. They do. But it's rare and it is not as widespread and is not at the level or frequency that movies in Hollywood and indie movies like the one that this person was trying to make would like you to believe. But there are real people with schizophrenia who are not hurting people, who are becoming victims of violence, either from the police because the police are not de-escalating these situations, in which people are maybe armed, but they are a psychotic and not in touch with the real world, and they believe that there's an active threat against them. That's what you need to understand, that for the person with the active psychosis, for the person experiencing the hallucinations of the people trying to kill them, it's scary and it's real. It's just as real as this glass is to you that you see right now, and I can feel and touch the coolness and the hardness of it. It's real to me. So I'm just as much a victim of the illness. I want people to begin to see schizophrenia as something that happens to a person in the same way that a person with no genetic disposition can develop MS. A person with no family history of cancer can still get cancer and die from it. And people with schizophrenia are 10 to 14 times more likely to be victims of violence than they are to be perpetrators of it. Now, my story is different because I'm a military veteran with a host of complex traumas predating my military service, and there was more trauma in the military, and there was more trauma even further after the military. We're talking domestic violence, we're talking about so many near-death experiences, we're talking about military trauma that doesn't even have anything to do with combat, and then we're talking about the military trauma that has to do with things that we're seeing when I was in the service in the course of my job. And then there's sexual assaults and traumas there too. Those are stories that other people write about, but they don't have any experience with those things and they make money off of it. And you go to see movies and you watch their YouTube channels and they're sitting out here telling the world to make personas. There's fake AI generated models out there running entire YouTube channels. And yet there's nobody out here offering to sponsor me or offering me brand deals, but I'm an actual real person who's lived with schizophrenia for over half my adult life. I think of the only person out here doing this, publishing horror and sci-fi about schizophrenic people who hear voices and see things other people don't see as essential protagonists instead of the villain of the story. If you can name another person out there who has openly said that they have schizophrenia and is actively publishing their work in the sci-fi and horror genre, I would love to hear their name and know who they are and read their work and support them. I would love to even collaborate if we could. So that's the story about the stars began to speak is about my sisters. Our experience is semi-autobiographical. The middle sister Grace is based on me. Um, there's a little bit of there's a lot of fictionalization to this, of course, because it's intended to be semi-autobiographical. And so yeah, but before I go, I want to read the introduction. In the quiet folds of scientific discourse, one article caught my attention and lingered in my mind long after I had read it. It discussed the idea of self-replication, the mysterious and awe-inspiring process that lies at the heart of life's origins. The article explored how complex life. Here, let me actually close this out real quick. Here's my ADHD. I can't. Um, it's okay. I'll just keep this going here for a second. How do I stop share? There we go. Okay. Sorry. ADHD, schizophrenia. I always have it. It's always present. And even though I might try to rehearse and write a script up, it won't matter because no matter how many times I try to script things, I end up just going way off the track and my brain just cannot stick to a real organized train for very long. So let me go ahead and start again. The introduction to the stars began to speak, and then you'll get a better idea of what it was supposed to be about. In the quiet folds of scientific discourse, one article caught my attention and lingered in my mind long after I had read it. It discussed the idea of self-replication, the mysterious and awe-inspiring process that lies at the heart of life's origins. The article explored how complex life forms could evolve beyond traditional methods of reproduction, bypassing the biological constraints that have governed species for millennia. What if, I thought, life itself could transcend its original form, not through mutation, but through a kind of recreation, a rebirth that reshapes everything we know about identity, family, and the cycles we inherit? That question became the seed for The Stars Began to Speak. The novel's premise, an exploration of familial bonds, generational trauma, and the idea of reinvention of the self through self-replication, is inspired by that very article. It challenged me to imagine a world where human beings could replicate themselves, not simply through biology, but through some deeper, more primal connection to their own existence. The story of the three sisters at the heart of this novel, Sylvia, Grace, and Caroline, emerges from that question, weaving together themes of evolution, survival, and the unbreakable yet fragile ties that bind us. But beyond the science and speculative fiction aspect, this book is deeply personal. The lives of Sylvia, Grace, and Caroline were not entirely drawn from imagination. Their struggles, their flaws, and their complex relationships with each other and their mother are echoes of our own experiences with my sisters. Like the sisters in this story, my sisters and I have known the pain of estrangement, the weight of family secrets, and the fragile hope of finding something redemptive in the face of overwhelming odds and anger. As I wrote, I couldn't help but reflect on how each of us, my sisters and I, carry the scars of our past while grappling with our own need to move beyond them. The tension between the sisters is as much about the pain of their shared history as it is about their individual evolution, both as individuals and as part of a larger family legacy. Each sister represents a different stage of this evolution, from the eldest, Grace, who feels the weight of guilt for her very existence, to Caroline, the seemingly strong one who is forced to confront her own hidden vulnerabilities, and Sylvia, who struggles with the consequences of her choices while searching for redemption. Their journey through this story is not just about survival, but about understanding themselves and each other in a world that seems determined to tear them apart. The Stars Began to Speak is a psychological thriller and a sci-fi body horror crossover novel that uses the concept of self-replication as a lens through which to explore the deepest parts of human identity and family dynamics. At its core, it's a story about what happens when we try to outrun our past, when we try to reinvent ourselves, when we are forced to confront the undeniable fact that we can never truly escape who and what we are. The sisters' journey is both universal and deeply intimate as they are pushed to the brink of extinction and forced to question not just the world around them, but the very nature of their own existence. As you read, I invite you to consider the connections between life and death, between creation and destruction, between the self and the other. And ultimately, I challenge you to think about what it means to be human in a world where the boundaries of identity, family, and time are not just blurred, they're about to be completely rewritten, one impossible thing at a time. And I'll leave you with a couple of pictures here in color, full color. Yes, yes, yes. The it's in color. You can't really see it very well because I've got the background going, but you can see my dedication to my sisters who have all been to hell and back more times than I can count and still continue to impress me with their resilience and wit. I invite you to pick up a copy today, either in ebook format on Gumroad or on paperback on Amazon. And I also invite you to check out my other shorts content and my short form stuff. We've had over 107,000 views in shorts. Well, actually, in total on my channel, just in the last 6 weeks or 8 weeks or so. I don't even know if it's quite really been 2 full months that I've started really posting and putting up content regularly. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the people who have been there to support me. My fiance, Chandra, has been there every step of the way to just back me and just be present and show up and do the liking and the comments and just to get that engagement going, to get the algorithm to know that I'm here. Takes a little bit of like, friends and family to kind of put in those likes and comments, those initial engagement like actions, or I was going to say like, just taking the time to like or share or subscribe or comment. It does help, but I just want you to know there's like no money coming this way because YouTube is a racket anyway. So there's no money. Like they want me to get up to 1,000 subscribers just so that I can put ads on my shorts or so that I can sell monthly subscriptions. Well, it's like everybody and their mom's doing that. I'm not going to do that. So I'm not putting ads on my shorts. So the way I'm going to make money is through my writing because I'm a writer. I'm an author, a published author, whether it's self-published or not. Other people have their self-published sci-fi series being produced on Apple TV. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility that somebody could say, "Hey, Kat, we see what you're doing. We see that you're trying to make a space for schizophrenic creators and their voices and their art in the form of books and TV series and streaming series and like transmedia properties. And let's see what we can do to help you like fund that." So right now, what I need from people is to actually buy the books, review the books, talk to me about the books, leave comments, like and share and subscribe, just so that we can keep a dialogue going with each other about this need to hear from people with schizophrenia, not from Hollywood, not from indie horror producers and people who are looking to just, I don't know, make a name for themselves by doing something that they consider to be edgy. Schizophrenia is not a horror trope. We are real people truly suffering in real time right now. I'm hearing voices now, all the time, threatening me, telling me to kill myself, and I am still here. After 5 hospitalizations, multiple suicide attempts, I'm still here. If nothing else, my army background taught me to never, like, never surrender, never give up, continue the mission. And right now, my mission is to create an app that helps veterans with schizophrenia and people with resistant schizophrenia like me to navigate the real world more safely, more comfortably, so that we can function and participate in the beautiful things that are real in this world that we miss about our lives before we ever had the illness. Because once again, I had a life before my schizophrenia. And even though I can't remember my life without the voices very well, I can't recall memories without hearing them, I still remember good feelings about certain aspects of my life. Now, I leave you with this, which is to check out all the content on my channel and tune in on Sundays at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time when I go live because I talk about really hard things, really uncomfortable things, but it has to be said. I talk about violence. I talk about my violent history, my military background, and how that contributed and I believe was a watershed for my schizophrenia diagnosis in the end. And we'll talk about just everything. We talk about sex, we talk about violence, we talk about the media misrepresentations. And I'm also going to actually be sharing some really crazy claims, but they're true, but they're truth claims about my experience working for some of the most iconic institutions in the country and around the world, including the Space Needle, including institutions of heralded and esteemed institutions of education, higher education, that let me down as an educator, as a student myself, and an educator. I think it's important that we unpack and call out hypocrisy wherever we see it within education, especially educational institutions that purport to espouse equity and diversity and inclusion. So I will be calling out, Claremont Graduate University. I'll be calling out, Disneyland. I'll be calling out the Space Needle in Seattle. I'll be talking about a lot of the experiences I've had within like fandom communities because I grew up as a Star Trek fan, so I'm a huge Trekkie. But in recent years, I've actually left the Star Trek community and the fandom and even the convention circuit due to abuse and ongoing just shady tactics and behavior, and even because of assaults that happen to me and to my friends within the convention community. And I just am sick and tired of it. So it just needs to be called out. So I also spend some time on Sunday nights talking about some of my experience working and my failures at work and struggling with schizophrenia to hold down a job, my struggle with trying to maintain insurance, health insurance, and maintain the right treatments, my struggle to find treatment, and my recent experience with Cobenfy, which was the first, newest, only latest breakthrough drug for schizophrenia in over 50 years, and how I tried it, but it failed miserably, and I talk about that. So the live stream is really where you want to be if you want to ask questions, no holds barred. You can ask me anything. As long as I am like able to function during the live stream, I will continue to try to answer. But because I see visual hallucinations, distortions, and things like that on my screen, I tend not to look at the chat so much because I'm trying to avoid the screen altogether generally. I don't want to look at my screen because I see disturbing images on my screen. So the trolls come out in full force, but I don't let that bother me because honestly, like everybody knows that negative attention is still attention, and all it does is reflect on the person who's putting their name next to that comment. So if you come on here to criticize me or attack me for the way I look, there's nothing you can say or threaten me, threaten my life, threaten bodily injury to me or my family or anybody like that. Just know you can't scare me. Like there's just nothing you could do that could ever really scare me or intimidate me or stop me from doing what I'm doing now, which is to literally just share my lived experience. If you want short form content, you're just like browsing on your lunch, and if you just want something to look at, but you want to get a sense, it may not be safe for work. So some of my shorts are labeled NSFW, but not all of them. I haven't had a chance to go back in and just make sure that like tag is on there. So just know that a lot of my shorts are little simulation videos, like POV style of me like waking up every day compared to like you, the non-schizophrenic person, or me like interacting with something that it might be a hallucination, and then me going through my day, like me just getting up and going to work, me going to my car from the apartment downstairs to the house, being followed by my serial killer hallucination, that kind of thing. So I have those kind of short videos, anywhere from a few seconds to up to 3 minutes, right, for shorts. And I will never put ads on them. They'll always be there as long as I can control this, which for as long as I can, I will, obviously, until it becomes impossible for me, or I relapse or something and I have to have somebody else help me with it. I will be the one in charge of this thing. So I don't intend to put any ads on my shorts, but you may see ads on the long form content, like my mad long, like my this episode right now. There may be ads on this eventually, but yeah. That's it for this episode. Thanks for being here this long. If you lasted this long, I really appreciate you just like hanging in there with me. I thought I did pretty good staying on topic and saying everything I wanted to say about this book. Like I said, I've been through a lot of different crazy, wild shit in my life, and I think it's worth publishing about, and it's worth putting it in and down in writing. And if other people can make billions of dollars off of my back and of my suffering, why shouldn't I get a cut when my story is real? It's real. You know what I mean? Don't you want authentic? I mean, that's what I thought everybody what wants now, especially in the face of all these fake AI generated models on YouTube. Did you know about this? Like, I think I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but if you don't know about this, there's complete channels on YouTube that are fully fabricated AI personas running them. And it was already bad when we had YouTubers and influencers out there already telling people who want real people who were trying to grind at this, like I'm doing, to adopt a persona. Like, why are you telling people to not be themselves? The whole point of YouTube is to be you, YouTube, you know? Like, yeah. Anyway, that's for a whole other live stream. But anyway, Sunday nights are 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I live stream. I usually do an Ask Me Anything, or I do a Naked Truth about X, Y, or Z topic, and it's usually something pretty hot button or pretty controversial. So if you want to be a part of that, I'd appreciate it. Showing up to the chat. If you want to counter them trolls or go to bat for me, that's great. If you're not, that's fine. But I just refuse to just be this plot device, this trope, this nameless, ignored, vilified, mocked entity out there who doesn't have anybody advocating for them. I've learned in my life that the only person I can really count on to advocate for myself is me. So as long as I can articulate, I will continue to use my voice to speak out on behalf of myself and those like me, as well as victims of abuse. That's it for now. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you at the next Mad when we'll cover. I believe the next one will be. I'm gonna try and do the ones I have hard copies for, so I can show the physical book. So I'll probably be doing Glass Stars next. So tune in for that. And the Hot Shop is where you'll find out more about the behind the scenes stuff about the Glass Stars sci-fi series, and that's about the schizophrenic woman who designs a whole world to escape her suffering, and then ends up in the future becoming like the last hope of humanity, inadvertently. So if you want to know more about that, that's Glass Stars. That'll be next week's episode. So tune in for that and watch for that one. I'm going to be trying to post these Sundays or Monday nights consistently. So wish me luck on that with my ADHD brain. If I can stick to my schedule, I will consider myself like golden from here on out, and I'll probably be good from here on out. So take care, everybody, and just remember that perception is not always reality, and to think before you trust the things that you see on the internet, because not everything out there is real. And now you're getting a taste of what it's like to have schizophrenia, and to always be questioning if something is fake or not really human. Cheers.